What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if we would ever get a God of War 1 remake. Now, 1 being the original, the very first God of War game, not God of War 2018. And it's interesting. This is something I have seen people throw around the internet pretty recently, I think, with Ragnarok ending, right? And part of it, you could probably understand, right? You end one chapter, and it really is. It's the ending of a chapter. Without really getting into spoilers, I don't really think that's necessary, but you're ending that Norse mythology, right? They even said that. It's over. And so now what do you do? Well, obviously, I think you're going to go forward, and I've made videos about, what you could do with select characters, right? We picked a couple, but also could you go backward? Now, I want to bring in Uncharted, even though we don't know everything about, the rumor mill of Uncharted, or they are actually only rumors. I do think it could be something that Sony would look at, right? So the rumor with Uncharted for a long time, now it's dating about like 2 or so years, is that there was at one point work on an Uncharted 1 remake. In fact, it's still possible that is happening. Actually, so little as a few weeks ago, Jeff Grubb posted a Twitter thing. I actually made a couple videos on this where he threw out the question. He said, will there be an Uncharted game in the next 5 years? Tom Henderson responded with a smiley face, right? So you got these leakers kind of like jabbing at each other, saying like wink, wink, like we know something, right? So I do think there'll be, and why do I bring that up? Well, I do think because we're in this remake era and we've been in it for such a long time, I bring in Uncharted because it's just another Sony property, right? 2007, old. It's old. Now, God of War, the original is even older than that. But I do think it makes sense and it's possible to go back to these games and give them a facelift. Now, it's tough, and really each of them are their own separate, things. So like God of War, it's tough because then what do you do after that, right? Do you only remake the first God of War? Do you then go to do 2 and 3? Do you handle like the Ghost of Sparta, like those kind of games? Where does it end? And then you have another viewpoint of it, which is pretty fascinating, and I very much take one side of it, which is, do you remake the first God of War game with God of War 2018 and Ragnarok in mind? Meaning, do you basically, it is a remake in the sense that it'd be the same story and the same plot and the same enemy types and all that stuff, but do you like revamp the combat to actually match it with the new ones? Do you do the camera style to match the new ones? Do you do the one-shot camera to match the new ones? Now, I strictly stand on the other side and say no, because if you're remaking it, you're not, in a way, like, well, yes, when you remake a game, you're like bringing it up, you're shining it off for modern audiences, but that doesn't mean that you recreate it and leave all of the things that made it special, right? Which is the combat, which is very, very special and was a staple of God of War for a long time. You have to include that stuff. So, I don't know if that would ever even be a conversation. I feel like if it were to ever be announced, right, then it would just be, yeah, we're remaking it. It's going to be the same combat style, all that stuff. I don't think we'd have to necessarily worry about it, but I do think it's possible. And I'm not going to read too much into Corey's statements, but we did go over an interview with Corey Barlog right about a week ago in which he said they're working on multiple different things. Now, I take it as, the way he said it, I take it as more than 2. I just assume if you're only working on 2 things, you say you're working on 2 things. If you're working on more than 2 things, you use the language he used. It's subjective. It's simply how I'm looking at it. And I guess it's possible, right? If they're really going to go in all these different directions, you do something to continue the franchise, ending Ragnarok and then keep going. You do that other game, right? Corey's game. And then do you do like a remake here and there, right? I don't know. I feel like it's possible. I think they are in different situations for sure. I bring up Uncharted, and one thing to counter, right? Like why they wouldn't do something for God of War, right? Would be with Uncharted, you're kind of in limbo right now. You're really done. You ended Uncharted 4 and you did Lost Legacy, but you did Uncharted 4. Nate's done. I do think there'll be more. I do think there'll be, chronologically more games in that, and they'll probably use his daughter, so on, so on. But they are in a weird spot where it's like, well, you do the movie, and the movie is Tom Holland as Nate, so you're keeping Nate around. So, like, is there a theme? Like, you really love Nathan, and I love Nathan Drake, too. He's my favorite game character. But, you keep him around, so what do? Well, maybe you can go back and remake 1 because it's old. If you remade it with the idea of, like, 4 in mind and try to make it, like, bigger, like, you could do a lot with Uncharted 1. And then maybe you buy yourself a couple years where you don't even have to worry about, the future. God of War is different. God of War is honestly different. Well, number one, we just got the last game, right? Like a week ago, like a few weeks ago. I don't think it was 1 week. A few weeks ago, we just got the most recent God of War game. Also, it is definitely not done, right? Again, without getting into spoilers, like you can you can keep going with Uncharted, but you can absolutely keep going with God of War. Actually, you can go in multiple directions with God of War, and they may do all of them, right? So it is different. Like there isn't a need to almost like revitalize it. Also, like you think of Uncharted 1 and you think, and again, like this is just I keep using Uncharted only because it was a rumor and a pretty big rumor. And I really do think we're going to get an Uncharted 1 remake at some point, but like that's a little different, right? Because like Uncharted 1 is so much, there was so much of a jump to the next game, Uncharted 2, and then, you know, so on. God of War, like it's almost in an era of its own where like God of War 1, 2, 3, like those work pretty darn well. And then even Ascension, all that stuff. But they made a noticeable on purpose pivot for God of War 2018. So do you want to bring back the old? Because kind of the point is to almost, you know, it's not getting away with it. They're not like disgusted with the past games, but they are going in a different direction. You know what I mean? So do you bring that stuff back? I don't know, actually. And that logic, I don't think you would. I actually think you would kind of leave it alone. But yet again, money. Okay, that's number one, money. I do think if you remade the first God of War and you upped all the visuals, but you kept, again, the combat is still that hack and slash stuff, I feel like it would do rather well. And maybe you don't even have Santa Monica do it. Maybe it's somebody else that can do it. And, you know, you just put it out there. It bridges the gap between now and the next God of War game that they work on, Santa Monica. Like, there are easily possibilities you can come up with, right? So we'll see. I do think it makes sense. I do think it makes more sense to do like Uncharted, or even, I don't know, even like touching up Infamous or bringing that back, or Resistance. I just feel like because God of War is ongoing and because they didn't, it's not, and I don't say Limbo is like some negative for Uncharted. It's not like finished where there's been a long lull where there's no games, right? I mean, even with Uncharted, maybe that's not true because they keep, you know, releasing them on PC and stuff. But for God of War, it just happened. It just happened. And you can imagine that the future, like they're going towards the future of these characters, not necessarily going back into the past. But who knows? Because money talks, and the era we're in with remakes, I feel like it's just as likely or just as possible as some other remakes to happen, right? So let me know what you guys think. Do you think it would ever get remade? It doesn't necessarily have to be now, but like in the future, do you ever think it'll happen? Let me know. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to follow or support me anywhere else, all my social media is in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.